So let's talk about fractals. About maybe, I don't know, 2 months ago, was it? Or 2.5 months ago? I always pay attention to what's out there, what kind of unique systems. If I see anything that looks unique, I go take a look at it. And probably at least 2 months ago, maybe 2.5 months ago, I saw a kid, about 17 years old, blabbing away about how he makes tons of money trading fractals and all that. And I know fractals have some merit. I've just never seen them applied in a way that I ever liked. But then when I saw what the kid was doing, I thought, okay, this is a logical approach, makes sense. And I really didn't think much of it, but I sent that link off to a couple of my good trading friends and said, hey, check this out. And the responses were basically like, yeah, there could be something here. And that's what I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to talk about what I'm going to do to build my own version of a fractals indicator on the aspects of using fractals indicators that make sense to me. So I put some images here of a tool that somebody else developed. And, I kind of get how they're using it. They're saying, hey, we have these levels that if price makes a substantial move, depending on the time frame you're analyzing from this perspective, if the move gets to an area price and that area price, you continue to look at the probabilities. What are the probabilities that price will keep going up versus what are the probabilities that now we're going to get some sort of reversal before we would potentially go back up again or have a continuation lower. So the fractals tool takes a look at those areas, and it's dynamic in nature. Let me explain that. The fractal tool will help you know that, hey, I'm getting some moves where we're hitting levels where the fractals say we have a certain amount of percentage probability of reversal versus a continuation of the trend. At least you're going to get some sort of pullback, and just the opposite if the market's in a downtrend and hitting levels that you're analyzing. So as that's hitting those levels, you can then look at other tools to identify points of reversal then to get into trades. So in other words, if I see this fractal tool running and running and running above my highest level that I measure, and here's my market running and running and running and running, and then as the market starts to lose some momentum and we're dropping off, and I'm leaving that level, and then I get a sell signal on whatever tool I'm using to track for reversals, now I know, hey, if I get into a short right here, there's only a 7% chance that we're going to keep going upward before we have some sort of downward move where the market goes back to some sort of mean reversion move that's workable from a how much risk am I putting on to can I at least get to 3-to-1 or maybe greater reward to risk per shot that I take when I get these setups. So this tool is something that can help you analyze when are the markets getting to the edges. And what I'm talking about, and I've talked to people about this before, I always say some of the best trades I think are in markets where you're playing the edges. So if the market is trading, a couple days and has a few moves, when the market gets to the recent edges of its range, those are areas where you can get potential really great reversal points. I've always liked trading the edges better than trading other stuff. So if you can measure and define, okay, where are my edges? Where are my, pretty probable edge and then my rock solid edge of a market in a way that's dynamic. And what I mean by that is this excursion outside your measurement could be one day, let's say this is the SP, or let's just hypothetically say it's just some instrument, and one day it hits that level and the price is at 464. But 2 weeks later, it might hit that level, but the price is at 516. So in other words, the measurement of the edges of the market are dynamic. And, this day it hits, it might be 488. And this day it hits, might be at 492. So in other words, this isn't some fixed price. It's dynamic. It ebbs and flows with the cyclical movements of the market. So I've always said if I can keep measuring the market in a way to find when I'm exceeding the edges of a market, and how I would do that in FX trading on the institutional side is using adaptive price bands on really high time frame charts, 4-hour charts and above. If I see price going outside my adaptive price bands, peeking its head above it on a 4-hour chart or greater, I can go back and statistically measure, hey, this is an event on this time frame on these settings that when price is outside, it's only outside 5% of the time. So now I'm into territory where if I take a shot to the short side, I should get some mean reversion, enough to get my stop to break even plus, and then if it dies, I make it big, goes back up and blips me out, whoop-de-doo, I wait again. So there's ways of measuring what are the dynamic edges of price that's widening its range, contracting its range in and out of periods of higher volatility and lower. So I get it for these tools. So let me get into what I would like to build using this information, the way I would like to use it, and then we'll kind of go from there. And the way some other groups use it is they do overlay, they can overlay it on price, and they can pay attention to where the market goes to. And then when you're getting these rotational points in the indicator, looking at the data of how you're measuring a fractal representation of the market conditions, you can use those as turning points. What I would rather do is use the fractals to tell me when I'm getting in high probability zones. I'll use my iGRID indicator then after. So let's just say my fractal tool identified a reversal point here. And then later in the day, it says, wow, this is a whopper reversal. And then I'm sitting, and then I get an actual sell signal. So after I'm exceeding what are being determined as a high probability area to be a seller now, an edge of a dynamically measured market, then I wait for the iGRID to okay me to short that with a fixed amount of risk and, go for a 3-to-1 or greater minimum in that type of a trade. And that's something that could be automated too. It's not that hard, or basically, I don't want to build a strategy. I would just build the indicator to say, I got a couple fractals, or I got a fractal that we're playing with the edges of the current market structure from a geometric or fractal standpoint. Now I get a sell signal. Okay, automation, or okay, indicator, let that be an output that is a bear signal. And, give me some area to define as what should be my measured risk, approximate. Then you can set it however you want. So I know this is a little bit complicated, but I hope it's making sense. Now, what I would like to do is I would prefer to have the fractal operating on the chart where price is, and then have when it downturns, give some sort of indication, and then basically we're waiting on the iGRID optimized on that time frame on that instrument to work with the fractal to be the, I guess you could see the overwatcher saying, okay, now that I'm short on the iGRID, now I'm allowed to take advantage of a market that seems to be pressing the outer edge of its dynamic range with a high probability we're going to get some sort of reversal. So does that kind of make sense to you? So we're using two non-correlated indicators to operate playing the edges of the market. And then when I do get short on that edge of the market, so let's say here's my short trade and my risk box. So I'm in, there's my risk. Then from that point going forward, I'm in the trade and waiting to see, what I get out of it, and so on. So that's the approach and the way that I am thinking in my mind that I'd like to do it. So now let's get into the next part. I remember back in the day, I saw something that looks exactly very close. I'd say within about an 85 to 90% match of what that kid is doing on his indicator, the one that's overlaid on price. And I found what was the original core beginnings of it. And now it's all coming back to me. So I can find what I need to start building the fractal tool for use on NinjaTrader 8 or other platforms. So now I remember it came to me. I did some digging and it was like, voila. So the fractal tool that I would build, I like connected lines. So I would like to have the ability where you could toggle off, on and off connected lines as the fractal tool is doing its measuring. And what I would do is some people use a two-line fractal tool, so they'll have a lower range portion, and then they'll have an upper range portion. I don't care for those as much. I know a way to run it where if I'm at a certain amount of area being maintained, I would only see the upper line. And when a transition happens, then a line would go down and connect to where the lower line would typically be, and then I'd only be seeing the lower line. So as long as the market keeps, once it's done its peak on the very, measured edge of the market's range, then I would like the transition to maintain until I get a reversal on the complete opposite of the other end of the range. Or at least have the ability to toggle it on and off that way, so to have some additional dynamic capabilities. Or some people just split the difference between the two, do an average, and they just have one line that's plotting, basically between the two. And when it rotates lower, that's where a lot of traders would get in short, put their risk on and so on. So it's an interesting approach, but I found the indicator. Now they had the fractal adjusted on this indicator for this example, and a very low, so you can kind of adjust the indicator to be very responsive to price or less responsive. And I can build a multi-time frame version of price. So if I'm trading maybe on a 15-minute chart, I can have the fractal looking at a 1-hour chart or 4-hour chart, so on. So there's a lot of potential here with this, but the key is I found the tool that was originally came out a long time ago and the code before it turned into a line-based indicator, vertical and horizontal line-based indicator. I knew I could find it. I was like, we started talking about it in our Discord room. I'm like, I'm going to find that. And I dug and dug, and I found it by accident, actually. I didn't find it searching the keywords my way. I found it completely by accident. And it was, hey, sometimes things work out. So I'm going to start digging into this and start building the original components. But when the fractal is estimating I'm on the edge of one side of the market per the settings that I have optimized for that instrument and time frame, I want to then use the iGRID system when I'm getting those excursions outside of the edges of the fractal determined range to then tell me, hey, this is a special long setup I'm getting here. So I'll put out more videos on this, but just wanted to kind of, start some discussion on this. And I found what I was looking for. So now I'm going to dig into this and really start moving forward on this. I think this has a lot of merit for defining the edges for those that want to work mean reversion type trades at the edges of the current market structure. If you have any questions, info@gridalgo.com.